If you use seller financing, no seller is going to ask for your tax returns. They don't need to see your tax return. They might question your ability to pay and like, can you actually service the debt? Like, can you pay me back? But they are not going to require your tax returns like a bank would. If you're able to buy some of that debt essentially and keep your interest rate and your PI down, your principal and interest down, like that is super powerful. But it's the interest rates and the debt service that are killing some of these deals. There's plenty of incentives and motives to want to buy using seller financing. Welcome back, everyone, to the Learn Like a CPA podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Bakey, and today we are going to talk about why you should buy a property using seller financing. Why is you as the buyer or the borrower should acquire real estate this way. Number one, obvious reason, is going to be the interest rate environment. Right now, we're seeing interest rates on conventional loans anywhere from 8%. You know, if you're doing DSCR, commercial loans, something with a little bit more risk and have a higher interest rate, the interest rates are crushing deals right now. A lot of people got properties that are in good locations that should do decent revenue numbers, but it's the interest rates and the debt service that are killing some of these deals. And so a lot of times, like when we're looking at deals now and some of my clients are looking at deals, you're really buying the debt. Like if you're able to buy some of that debt essentially and keep your interest rate and your PI down, your principal and interest down, like that is super powerful. And so there's plenty of incentives and motives to want to buy using seller financing, and I'm going to break them down right here. So we already talked about number one is that interest rate like arbitrage, right? If I could secure a note at 5% when inflation's running at 7 or 8%, I'm literally making a spread on that money just by holding that note because I've secured a property with a 5% interest note and inflation's running rampant. And so I'm literally gaining value just by having a 5% note in the environment where interest rates are 8 or 9%, right? That's like interest rate arbitrage. You're literally making money by holding on to the debt. So that's going to be number one. Number two, why you should buy using seller financing is...
Real quick, guys, if you could think about how you found this podcast, maybe it was on Facebook, Instagram, maybe somebody shared it with you. I don't run ads for the show or have sponsorships, so the only way this grows is through word of mouth. If this was valuable for you in any way, the only ask that I can make is that you share it with somebody else. Pass it on to the next person whose investing journey or business can be changed by listening to the show. Much love, guys, and let's get into the episode.
Number two, why you should buy using seller financing is you do not have to submit tax returns. So these are going to be for like my self-employed people, my entrepreneurs, business owners. Like you guys know the gauntlet of like having to submit tax returns and getting the banks to verify your information and your income. It's like, oh, I don't get a W-2, I get a K-1, I blah, 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 I get this. Like if you use seller financing, no seller is going to ask for your tax returns. Like they don't need to see your tax returns. They might question your ability to pay and like, can you actually service the debt? Like, can you pay me back? But they are not going to require your tax returns like a bank would. And so, especially business owners, like you know that you need to have 2 to maybe 3 years of tax returns in order to get a regular loan from a bank. With seller financing, you don't need that. You don't need your tax returns. Like you don't even have to be on board or like on time with your taxes. You could be in deferral for all people. No, seller's not going to know that. So that's number two. Number three reason why I would say is it doesn't show up on your credit. So when you do a seller financing note, when you do seller financing, like that loan is not going to show up on your credit like it would a normal bank loan. And so there's a lot of powerful strategy in there of protecting your credit and protecting your ability to borrow, like on a future house or a car or whatever it is, like protecting your ability to borrow. After that would be debt to income. Because again, a seller financing note isn't going to show up on your debt to income. And that's super powerful. And if you watched the previous episode in my case where I'm able to acquire a property and even though my debt to income was maxed out, I'm still able to do a note with the seller and it's not going to show up on my debt to income. Now, my monthly spend and my monthly ratios and things like that, it's going to not hurt me, but it's going to count against me, so to speak, of I'm having to shell some money out per month on this note for this rental property. But ideally this property is going to be cash flowing for me and it's going to be covering that debt. But again, that loan doesn't show up on my debt to income. And that was, if you listen to the previous episode, that was one of the ways that I was able to acquire that second property was I was able to use seller financing. I didn't have to use a bank. And that to me made the most sense at the time because if I wanted to scale, that's the route that I had to go. And I always tell people this all the time is the number one thing preventing most people from scaling their portfolio is...
Hey, real quick, guys, wanted to interrupt the podcast episode today to make sure that you check out some of the free tools that I have online. So these are going to be tools that are going to help you analyze deals to see if they're good investments. They're going to help you track your rental property investments, and they're going to be tax training tips. So you're going to get access to all my pro formas, all my tax trainings, all my strategy completely for free. So make sure you download it. It's going to be linked in the podcast here below. And now back to the show.
The number one thing preventing most people from scaling their portfolio is not protecting their debt to income ratio enough. Your DTI, so your monthly income versus what you're spending. If you got student loans, car payments, house payment, like all that's going to count against your debt to income, and you really need to protect that. And one of the ways you can protect that or try to acquire more deals if you are capped out of your debt to income is to use seller financing. So there's plenty of perks of using seller financing. Another little thing we'll talk about is you actually get the same tax benefits if you do seller financing as if you were to buy it regularly. Now with seller financing, a lot of times you might have to expect to come out of pocket for a little bit more money. So you might have to put 20% down on seller financing, or I think we've done as much as 30% down on seller financing. And you might have to come out with a little bit more cash. But again, you're not having to get a bank loan. Nobody's looking at your tax returns. Nobody's pulling your credit. And that's the way that you're able to acquire properties as a buyer using seller financing. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about why you should sell using seller financing. There's going to be a lot of tips and tricks in there about how do you actually convince somebody to seller finance you a property. Because I also used to believe that seller financing was really only beneficial for the buyer. Like, why do they even call it seller financing? Because it is in the buyer's best interest most of the time because of those 4 factors that I just outlaid right there. But when you understand why a seller should sell using seller financing, you can use that as a negotiation tactic to get them to seller finance it. And you guys will see that in the next episode. It'll be awesome. Like, I'm going to break it down all to you, how I did that and how you can do it too. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.